My other bird is picking on my other bird, so I was almost going to put the spray bottle next to me, but they might settle down. So, I had some interesting points to make about how when I went into the city, there was this really interesting feeling that came over me. And I'm wondering if you as well have experienced something like this in your own life. And that is, how do I put it? When you get around a really condensed area that is not necessarily beautiful, it could have, hey, Pablo Escobar, onward to Retaria, how you doing, bro? How you can feel really sick and condensed. I noticed that when I'm in a very natured area, Assalamu alaikum, oh, Gofrain May, long time no see, sister, good to see you here, that I feel more sick, like spiritually, like afflicted. And I get around, like in San Francisco, you'll see like Macy's and all these shopping places. And for me, I just feel like gross, unhappy, not really well. And I notice how it affects my mind. It doesn't make me feel happy. There's like a sickness to it. And then when I come home into my little sanctuary, I feel so much better. And I started to think about what if how like how people get depressed. I'm really starting to think that the architecture really influences us. Now, in ancient civilizations, we know architecture was a really big thing. The way they designed everything had a purpose, especially when it came to acoustics for sound. Especially the Catholics when they were designing the cathedrals. Now, of course, you know, they're not the only one to do domes and arches inside of their buildings, the cave vaulting and whatnot, but just the sound of how voices would carry and the way Catholics designed the building to be very tall and how people would fit within the said area, how it would enhance their spiritual feeling and whatnot. And then if you contrast that with how the Native American tribes of America would have vision journeys, they would have outdoors type of activities, going to the peak of mountains. A lot of different civilizations, their wanderers would go on top of these high cliffs and love to see views and spend time there. I mean, who doesn't know the cliche, well, I don't want to say cliche, but the common trope of the monk on top of the mountain. I still think Tibetan monks do that a lot today, but at least, you know, 500 years ago it was way more common, as we used to travel throughout the earth on animal back instead of on paved roads through condensed cities. And they would tune in with nature, look up at the sky, feel a sense of peace and tranquility. And then you get the Italian architecture, Vienna and all that, Florence, and these tiny little streets, but the architecture is still really pretty, but it's just quite different. And the way you look up and you see how all the people are stacked on top of each other. Then you look at the slums of Haiti, how these shanty towns and a car can't even go through, and the buildings are not designed right. Then you look at China and these apartment buildings that look like prison cell blocks. You go to New York City. When I went to New York and I looked up at the sky, it's just, to me, it's a nightmare. And some architectural people have pointed out that heat and wind gets worse in the cities because there's no trees, there's no shade. The way the sun reflects off the building makes it hotter. And it just feels more miserable. Now, there are some people who like this city aesthetic. I am definitely not one of those people. But I do find it quite remarkable how when I get around certain types of buildings, it will influence me. I'll feel either I want to get the heck out of here, or like I want to throw up, or this place is very peaceful and calm. And so, if you're able to, when you're trying to look for a place to live, think about, is this place going to make you relax? Is this place going to make you feel good? I remember when I lived in Philadelphia with my mother, there was not really any natural light. And the window, one of the few windows we had, the view was just a brick wall to the back alley of another building. Now, if you know Philadelphia, you know that Philly has these type of structures, like their building designs, they are clicked into each other. You don't have too much space. So the view wasn't very nice. And it affects you psychologically. There was another time where I was living on my own at 17. I rented a basement. And the thing about the basement was you couldn't tell if it was night or day, and I just had a light bulb. You pull the metal dangling string, and you can't really tell if it's night or day. It's not healthy. Now I have a view where I can see the sky uninterrupted. I can lay down, look out my window, and see the distance, which makes me more calm, at peace. So I wonder if people, if they're feeling depressed, anxious, and restless, if they got farther away from the city, how they'd feel. Now here's the flip side. I do understand people who are completely out in the middle of nowhere, and then the air feels like it's at a standstill. Prisons, Escobar says, prisons usually have the lights on 24/7. Oh, that's so true. Definitely a form of psychological torture. That's for sure. Now, there is this sort of bleakness when you get out into some rural areas, and there isn't much for the youth to do, so the youth find ways to make trouble. And I understand that mode of consciousness. And there seems to be this happy medium, depending also on your age. I think if you're retiring or you're a young mother, having some type of farm in a rural area is great. For teenagers, I think you need to be a little bit more close, or at least within driving distance of some activity for them to do, to keep their mind busy, because their hormones are raging. And aggression. There should be some type of, gun club, some type of hunting club, a gym, a fitness center, something where the youth can get their physical energy out. Because if they're just there by themselves, fidgeting with pent-up angst and energy, I feel like it can get misplaced and manipulated really quick. I think this is why some country kids get too fascinated with gang culture, because they see like danger, power, and then you come across people who are in the inner city gutters, as we call it, in the concrete jungle, in Section 8 housing, and they're stuck with their PlayStation as a way out. And I started to think about what is the video games have done to people to keep them in this form of apartment housing, and then how Mark Zuckerberg is developing these sort of metaverse goggles that will help people escape their physical location, at least mentally, right? They'll exit themselves and go into another world, and they won't need space anymore. That's what he contends, right? I do see in the future people being on the treadmill or some type of machine where you can walk left or right so you're not crashing into walls, and then you put on your goggles and you're running in the metaverse, but you're on a treadmill. And that'll be their form of exercise and escaping their small apartment lifestyle. And for the people in the rural areas, I think they'll have the same machine, but their machine, their illusionary metaverse reality would be something like a nightclub, some ridiculous hedonistic thing. And I feel like this is going to cause addictions. It's going to really make people separate from themselves and not realize that the architecture around you affects you. And I think also when you go for a job, you should ask yourself, is this view pretty? Am I going to like it here? If you don't got a choice, you ain't got a choice. Don't get me wrong, I know. But there's been jobs where I had a great view, where I was working at a restaurant right on the ocean. So when there was nothing to do besides polish silverware, polish wine glasses, fix tablecloths, you could stare outside and see the beautiful ocean. When I was working at a fried chicken restaurant in Philadelphia called Crown Fried Chicken, that was a very depressing place to work. It was behind a bulletproof glass, and I was alone a lot of the time with just the cashier, and the back was not lit very well, and the waiting area had like a very weird, overly bright white light, and it was in a dangerous part of town, and it was just miserable. And so when you get around different work environments, this also affects you. What kind of building are you working in? What kind of environment are you working in? Can you do something better? And is it better to do a job where you can move around more, have more comfort and tranquility that pays you less, than if you chose a job that's going to put you in a very small area under an immense amount of pressure, but you earn more money, and then you spend all that money rejuvenating yourself from the hell that was your job that week. And this really gets me to just thinking about how architecture in our environment affects our mood and spiritual health. Because every time I have to go into Oakland, or you go somewhere around in the Bay, you look at the either overly fancy modern architecture to the slums, and then it just feels like you're unhealthy, like you're unwell. Okay, let me give you another example. I like going to somewhere like the farmer's market, right? In the farmer's market, it's really fun. You have a great energy. You can get duck eggs, fresh meat, great things, right? Handmade ceramics, you name it. Then we had to get a membership to Costco so we could start buying bulk toilet paper, bulk tin foil, bulk garbage bags, cleaning stuff. Because due to inflation, we recognize that we're spending more buying it from CVS and Target than if we just got bulk. And, we did the math and figured out it's better just to buy bulk. And so I was in Costco, right? And it just felt like hell. It's just such a weird place. I walked around. There's all this frozen food, and the building just looks so depressing inside. It just felt like a really weird place. And I get that they make it that way on purpose. But it had a psychological effect. And then you think of your local deli, how cute it is. Like, there's a Greek deli that's not too far away, which has some really great foods and stuff. And then you go into like Safeway, and it's just like corporate crap made by people who hate their job. Instead, you eat somewhere where they actually put some love into the food. It's better, and the architecture affects you. Assalamu alaikum shamsul alam. And so, if you look at how people design cities and how we should design cities in the future, we do need, just more nature around. This bleak just raw concrete, homeless people on the streets. It makes people sick. I don't know how people can live in Los Angeles. That place looks like the asshole of the devil. It's just a terrible, horrible place in my mind. The way the yards are, in East LA, the yards in the front of the houses, some of them are just concrete and a metal fence. You hear helicopters all the time. You got bars on the windows. What a miserable way to live. Just so you can be like, I live in LA. It's like, no, you should go somewhere to the boonies. It's better to be poor in the rural area than poor in the city, where you're preyed upon by worse predators than a coyote. And so I was thinking, how do I keep myself spiritually strong in Islam? It's by creating my own environment, by the permission of Allah, that is. Only Allah can guide us, right, and maintain our faith. But I realized, if I stay out of the city, I have a stronger faith. Like, you go in, like, okay, let's say you have a dentist appointment and the dude is in the city. Cool, you go there, you get the hell out of Dodge right when you're done. You don't linger. I just don't like seeing the Boost Mobile stores. Like, it just feels gross to me. I like to buy my stuff from individuals as much as possible. Like on Etsy or a farmer's market. I like to be with small people doing their business instead of with corporations as much as possible. Even if I have to pay $1 or $2 more. And I noticed that if I avoid city people and liberals, I feel a lot healthier. I know people say there's no difference between a liberal and a conservative, but I feel the spiritual difference. Like today when I was walking by the ocean, there was 2 lesbian liberals there. One with a side shave, and she was like, so what's your gender identity? And it was like, I just got so angry that even here I'm by the ocean, I gotta hear these liberals talk about their nonsensical liberal gender ideology. Like, I can't escape them. And you just felt spiritually sick. And then you get away from them, and then you just see some guy fishing, trying to catch some sea bass, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. Like, just peace, you know? That's how I think I'll maintain my faith and my sense of strength, is by staying away from city slicker liberals who are LinkedIn psychopaths. When I get around the fakest people who are these perfect cookie cutter LinkedIn liberals, atheists, and feminists, I feel the most spiritually sick. Like I'm next to a vampire who is just a nightmare. And who's severely narcissistic and has deep mental illness and is just totally fake so that they can just network and get ahead. I'm not dealing with a real person. And when you look at them, it's like you're looking in the pupil of their eyes, and there's like this just weird mirroring energy that's like, are you connecting with this person? Hello? It's just strange to me. And also, I want you to think about, okay, so we have the physical architecture. Now, I want you to think about the metaverse architecture, because they're selling land in the metaverse, okay? And that is going to lead to new forms. Assalamu alaikum, Fatuma. All different kinds of psychological experiences. And the way I think of this insight is, when I play Red Dead Redemption 2, that cowboy game, I could play that game for 7 hours. I mean, I've been good and I haven't played any video games in over a year. But what I'm trying to say is that that game was so well done, and something that I like so much, riding around on a horse, hunting, fishing, going through the snowy mountains. It was just an amazing game. That to me was a sign that if someone creates something like that in the metaverse, and I can't physically go do that in my real life because I can't afford a horse, I can't afford to pay for the gas to travel that far, you see what I'm saying? That the metaverse almost seems like it's an escape route to a new reality and dimension, and you can get stuck there. You can almost just not want to unplug from it. And once they start creating jobs in the metaverse, selling real estate, people start gathering in there, the psychology that will come from us is going to really change, I feel. And the architecture there will be dependent upon the coders, how they will facilitate it. And that'll be like a little digital paradise. You know, Samantha Haynes, dude, take that blanket off. How about you go suck off a donkey? Let's hide user on this channel. Bye, ho! Why don't you go laugh now? And so, I was just thinking about how this element of architecture is going to take on a new expression. Oh, what is that? Zayd says one day we'll have the metaverse within the metaverse. You would have to, that would be hard because you put on the goggles, so then your character would put on goggles. Like you'd have a character who then plays a game. Like there's these Nancy Drew old classic games where you play a game in a game. But you know, maybe that could happen. But the architecture will then affect people's mood, and I wonder if people will lose sight of reality, if they'll lose sight of what does it mean to really live again, and to realize that in the real world you need nature, you need trees, you need the ocean, you need the snow, you need the fall, that real sense of humanness that comes from our natural environment. And if we lose that, how will we change as well? Let me give you another example. So like I was listening to a person talk about the guy, he's a YouTuber named Mr. Beast. Dude has mad subscribers, right? And he has a editing style which makes me feel physically sick. Jump cuts, high editing, overly bright, too colorful, and clickbaity. It makes my brain just feel like it's not doing really well after watching that. Like Philip DeFranco, he has an editing style as well, where it's jump cut, and it messes with your brain in an unhealthy way. And I started wondering, why is it that so many of these younger generations, like their brains are almost abused because of the content they watch? They have short attention spans, and they want too much entertainment, and they don't have patience, and they're impulsive. And I notice when I avoid content creators that do too much editing, my attention span and sense of peace and mental stability feel much better. And it is a contrast to the old days when you had radio. Just think about how people used to drive looking at the beautiful scenery and just hear people's voice, and how that was sufficient. And now it's like, oh, you have to have this editing, you have to have this, like, it's a new style that has produced very, very short attention spans. And you have to wonder, where are we going as a people when you watch more nonsense than you do educational things? And how it'll be quite difficult to have a society that functions when we have people who feel dead inside at their job, they escape into the metaverse, and then we have people who are zombie scrolling for the next shock jock. Zayd says, short form content is the modern day smoking. Oh, that's a good phrase. Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah. And so I like watching also these old time movies where, like, there's these old cowboy movies, okay? They don't have as many jump cuts. The scene stays longer, and I felt like that's more healthy, because you're dealing with dialogue, expression. But then when you get to these, where like a documentary, sometimes they do this. It's like scene, and you're like, oh, my eyes, like, turn it off. It's just too much. And so this really makes me think about how you have to keep your soul strong and healthy by what your eyes consume. Zaid says, we'll see that eventually, but it'll take a generation to suffer the consequences. Very good point, right? It's how we learn, isn't it? Ishmael says, true. I remember the radio was simple, smartphones making me depressed. Yeah, and I started following, like, things that are wholesome. Like, don't get me wrong, I love to have things about politics. But if there's a content creator who's focusing on lust, who's focusing on materialism, on luxury, on vanity, I'll block them so that I don't see them in my feed. Even if they haven't, like, okay, so if someone's bragging about, like, I just bought this fancy car, block. Why? Because I don't want to ever have my soul want to chase that type of expensive car. Like, for example, that Mr. Beast guy. He spent $5,000 on a macaroni and cheese. I can make macaroni and cheese. You see what I'm saying? With organic ingredients, with pasta made from Italy. You wasting that kind of money, it's absurd, but people want to watch it. And the bread and circuses that Karl Marx, that the Roman Empire, that the Aztecs, basically every civilization has a form of bread and circuses that keep the populace entertained, is really a weapon almost at a certain point. And I started just thinking about, okay, we need a little entertainment, don't get me wrong. We all got to have our little forms of, like, laughter, of wholesomeness that gets us thinking, stuff like that. But what we have to really make sure of is that we don't get lost. The weirdest thing to me is when you see soccer fans and football fans, like the NFL, beating up each other in the parking lot because so-and-so's team won and they didn't want it. It's just quite absurd. Hey, John Spot. Assalamu alaikum. So, we have to watch out for how architecture affects us, how we keep our spiritual health intact by what we watch concerning content creators, how we're utilizing our time, how to have the balance, not to get too distracted with bread and circuses. Gofrain says, and that is how we shall think of getting what we need, not everything we just desire. It's a kind of hard mission with the kids I see today with their moms at supermarkets. A real horror movie. Very good point. Very good point. I agree with that. To really make kids see that they have to have, healthy diets. You don't need certain trinkets in the store or a brightly colored cereal box that's all sugar, right? My kid, for example, I have not given her a smartphone. She does not know how to use a smartphone. And I feel like this has protected her mind. She's not allowed to have a tablet, not allowed to play PlayStation, not allowed to be on the computer. If she does, it's disconnected from the internet and it's downloaded games. She doesn't know any password to any device. Everything is controlled because you have to protect your kids. And when I see some of these moms handing their smartphones just to their kids who are like 8 years old and they're on TikTok, those are pieces of trash parents. And don't give me this crap about, oh, they can put on parental controls on TikTok or whatever. Nah, it's just wrong. Ishmael says the new generation who grew up with TikTok are heading to destruction. Yeah, I was at Jamba Juice, and these 4 boys were doing the stupidest TikTok dances over and over and over, trying to get it right. And it was weird watching these kids just doing these strange dances, and they weren't talking to each other. They were just trying to do this perfect dance. It was weird. Gofrain says, and speaking of horror, I'm wondering, how can people enjoy horror movies? I really want to know, what is the pleasure in being scared? That's a good question. So my grandma, she loved horror movies. She would watch tons of horror movies. When I was little, I would sit and watch them with her. She would watch popcorn. We had more horror movies back in those days. We had VHS tapes and we had DVDs. My grandma had closets filled with horror movies. She loved Halloween. She was totally into it. And I'd ask my grandma, why you like watching this? And she just started saying that she likes seeing the evil. She likes seeing what humans are capable of. The mind of madness. What the mind can twist and distort into. And she was more addicted to being scared. And she was not a very loving grandma. She was not loving. She was not nurturing. She never cooked for me. She never walked me to school. She never walked me to the bus stop. She never made my school lunch. She rarely told me she loved me. She never talked to me about getting married. Never talked to me about my period. She was not loving at all. Very neglectful, actually. I mean, not very good at all. But the times that I did spend with her, Salam Yusuf Othman, Salam Don Q, we would watch horror movies. And she would get scared and she was enthralled with it. I'd have to ask her again to refresh my memory what was the addiction of being scared. But she grew up a very hard life. She grew up with an extremely dangerous father. She was molested by her own dad. Her own dad took her virginity and some of my aunt's virginities, their own father. And so she had a sort of demonic father. And I think when she watched horror movies, it made her not feel so bad about her childhood, maybe, if I want to psychoanalyze it. Like the fact of her seeing something more evil made her feel like she was fortunate for having something less evil than what those people were going through. But one thing that I learned from horror movies growing up was a deep distrust of my fellow man, which I think saved my life many times. Because as I would grow up, my grandma used to let me go wherever I wanted. I could go wherever I wanted. Nobody cared where I was. I could leave. I used to walk on the train tracks by myself. I would walk anywhere I wanted, and nobody cared. And there would be creepy people who would see me as a kid, like 7 years old, walking by myself, and I wouldn't go near their cars or anything, or never in their houses, because I had watched horror movies and I knew there were crazy people in the world. So I would just be climbing trees or playing behind storage centers, doing whatever, climbing fences, you name it. And I stayed pretty safe because of a loss protection, obviously. But because I had exposure to some of the most graphic horror movies you ever could imagine. And that was something that I learned from horror movies, was just the world is not a Disney fairy tale. Now, would I show horror movies to my kid? No. I can talk to her, but I won't never let her watch that at a young age. But my grandma was, that's the main genre she watched. And we would go to haunted houses. My grandma wouldn't flinch. I think my grandma was very, very brave. She had like nerves of steel. And she rarely got afraid of stuff. Maybe that's what made her so cold, you know? Ishmael says, VHH tapes, MP3, Walkmans, magazines, the good old days. The internet made those things obsolete. Yeah. Gofrain said, exactly. And that is why we keep choosing the wrong things for ourselves once we grow up later. We simply choose based on what we are familiar with and not what is right for us. That's a great point. Yeah. And then learning what is right for us. What do we need and how can we change? I looked at my childhood and was like, what do I have to change to make sure my kid doesn't have access to this, this, and that? And so Uh, one example is my grandma never talked to me about bullies. So I fought a lot. I had to defend myself. And I never felt like I could come home and tell her, oh, I punched so and so because they was bullying me. She didn't even really care to ask me how my day was, so I was just alone. You know, my mom was a stripper. She never called. My dad was a drug dealer he was out chasing women. So my grandpa was at work. Nobody really cared about what happened to me. Now with my kid, I take her to school and pick her up, and we have long conversations about her day. And I tell her, anyone puts their hands on you, you fight like hell. And you tell me. You tell me the kid's name, we go to the office, we get it done. No one is allowed to touch you, ever. And if they do touch you, you lay into them, no matter what. So, we have to change that. We have to make sure our kids get better than what we had. GoFrain says, I was amazed by Alan de Bottom explained why we keep choosing the wrong people for ourselves. Interesting. Silent Ghost says, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What will be your response to argument if one tells sisters to wear hijab, but she tells it is between us, her, and Allah? That one's a difficult one. Because I've had to balance that, because when I became Muslim, when I said my Shahada, I felt a desperate need to put on the hijab. 1 second. I got a yummy fruit juice here. It's so freaking good. I felt a deep need to put it on. I had a calling to put it on. And I haven't had a moment where I've talked to... It is true that it is that person's personal journey. This is true. And you can't, tie it to their head. This is the difficult part. It's a troubling question, because it shows that they need to ignite the love of Islam more. Okay, let me give you an example. I was trying to buy a bagel at the farmer's market, right? And there was a lady there, and she said, are you Muslim? I'm in like the full Islamic garb. You know what I mean? And my kid has a hijab on. And my husband's there. He's staring at her like not too friendly face, because he's like, what she's gonna say, right? And she goes, oh, I'm Muslim too. And I was like, oh yeah? And this lady had a sundress on. Her knees were showing. She was in high heels. Her hair was down. She had makeup on, a fancy purse. I think she was from Egypt. And she eventually got her bagel ahead of me and left. And then my husband said, yeah, she's a fake Muslim. And he almost said it to her, he said. He almost said it to her. He reminds me of Umar bin al-Khattab. I know probably every woman says that. Oh, my man reminds me of this Sahaba. But I'm talking about the temperament and the sharpness. My man will tell a woman something, and sometimes it'll make her cry, but he almost was gonna tell her, like, are you sure you're Muslim? Yeah, fake Muslim. So even when he sees a woman who will tell me, like, I'm Muslim too, and she doesn't have a hijab on, he gets like, canceled. He also told me that there was a Russian classmate, because he was taking a class, and she saw us together at the bank, and she told him, oh, your wife wears that Muslim clothing. He said, yes, she does. And she goes, I'm Muslim too. And he goes, do you pray? No. Do you wear hijab? She wasn't wearing one. She said, no. And he goes, then how are you Muslim? And he turned around. He's a little bit more spicy than me, right? I'd be like, oh, is your hijab at the dry cleaner? Like, I would say something a little bit more soft, right? To see what's going on. But he'll just be very direct. But, it depends, brother, who you're dealing with. Are you dealing with a feminist? How you approach a sister is also depending on how she is. Like, is she very liberal? Is she struggling? Who are her friends? It's a puzzle. You gotta look at the context. It's very difficult. Nazir says they are called liberals. John Spot says, Milahan, do you do StreamYards? I I don't click links from people I don't really know. There's only 2 people who I use Stream, well, a couple actually, who I knew them and I trusted them, so I clicked the link. Otherwise, Zoom. If you want to do a podcast, give me the meeting ID, the passcode, we'll set up a time, and that way I keep myself safe. I keep myself safe from hackers, and you can download the Zoom, edit it how you like if you want to make fancy background or whatever. But Zoom keeps me safe, and I put my family first after dealing with hackers. And there's software out there that can make links look legitimate when they're not, and you get phished. And your Wi-Fi gets hacked, or your data gets stolen. It's just not worth it. One click can literally cause hundreds, dollars of damage and hours of pain to repair, So when it comes to StreamYards, I've only clicked it from people who I know and they put their integrity on the line, right? That's who I click links from StreamYard for. Otherwise, you just do Zoom is much better for me. And then you download it, and then you upload it to your channel, and then you can put on a chat. Like, you can do a premiere, right? And then people can chat. So there's ways to do it, but I think because you're the one who said about you wanted me to go on your channel and talk about Islam. Yeah, just Zoom keeps me safe, and I've turned down people with huge amounts of followers, and I said no, it has to be Zoom, because they could have a lot of followers, but how do I know that they don't hate me and want to give me a virus in my devices? After I survived getting hacked as bad as I did, when I really had worked so hard to get away from those hackers, and I read so many books on the technology of hackers and phishing links and their bot attacks, I learned all that stuff. It was a hard journey, so I try to avoid it. Silent Ghost says, but one should strive for becoming better Muslims. Wearing hijab is one of the obligatory order on Muslim. Sorry if I'm coming up with topic, but I got to know that just putting a cloth on does not make one a hijabi. Good point. No, you're welcome to talk about a topic you want to talk about. That's what the live stream is for. I don't mind. I agree with you. We all should strive to become better. It's just difficult. How do you talk to certain people in a way they can understand? It's almost like those conversations have to be done in person, and then you have to respect when to walk away. You feel me? You gotta know the balance. Okay, so like, how far do you push? How far do you don't want to nag, but you don't want to be too soft and excuse them. But I think one strategy is that Muslim men support women who actually cover and stop watching women who don't cover. There's Muslim influencers on Instagram who have 100,000 subscribers and they have full face of makeup and no hijab on. What is that? You have girls on TikTok who say they're Muslim, and they're making all these videos against Muslim men, and they don't even have a hijab on. You can't even tell they're Muslim, and they say, lower your gaze. It's like you don't even have the audacity to wear a hijab, and you're telling Muslim men what they should want in a marriage? You crazy woman? Look in the mirror. So, for me, the best thing you can do is stop giving your attention to the women who openly disobey the basic commandment of covering your hair. Sure, there's semantics about the niqab and the burqa. I understand. Right? I get it. But if there's a sister who is going around saying, I'm Muslim. And then she's constantly like dyeing her hair, doing a lot of fake nails, tons of makeup on, and then selling you products for CBD. You gotta ask yourself, is it good to give her my follow? Is it good to give her my interactions? And support sisters like Niqabi Diaries. Niqabi Diaries does a podcast where she inspires women to cover, right? They tell their stories. And even sisters who, let's say they're not wearing the niqab, they just got everything else though, but they just got their face showing, still show support to those sisters because they're doing better than the women who are dressing like not even like a Muslim, and they don't even have the hair cover, and they're like, I'm Muslim, follow me. And if you want to encourage the hijab, stop watching non-Muslims react to Muslim content, because you're giving them views, and this in and of itself is a problem, because the hijabis and the niqabis will say, look at this, we're doing educational things, nobody watches us, but they watch the uncovered women, and then you tempt them to not behave Islamically, you know? John Spot says, I love Daniel Hakikatu too. I don't love Daniel. I love my husband. You can say appreciate. You should say, I appreciate Daniel Hakikatu. I respect Daniel Hakikatu. Don't say love. That's like homo stuff. Because you're a dude, right? You shouldn't say love. That sounds like homo. Zakir says, don't be like the Hawarij. Muslims have a tendency to nitpick on hijabi dresses, but leave alone the non-hijabis. Hijab is fard. I don't know much about what this word Hawarij means. Hey, truth and knowledge! Salam fam, a quick brotherly warning. The John Spot guy in the chat is known Islamophobic atheist. He is not Muslim. Check his YouTube channel. You definitely shouldn't trust him or join his stream. Oh, okay. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Ishmael, how do we deal with toxic parents who never give advice? Oh boy, so what do you mean by advice, brother? You mean, give me more context. Toxic in what way, and advice for what? Finances, marriage, real estate? Like, what kind of advice are you talking about? You know, John Spot says, I could do way better than him. Hey man, if you're part of the Rainbow Mafia, you can go to a different stream. We ain't about that on this channel. So if you want to do homo stuff in the chat, there's no that kind of talk in the chat. None of that kind of stuff here. We talk about knowledge. We talk about way better things than you getting all corny for Brother Daniel. I don't think his wife would like very much what you're saying. But, yeah. But to reiterate my point about architecture, Girlfriend May says, but Mel, shall we stop talking to dealing with non-veiled Muslims? I think no. The veiled might be one day veiled. And even not, my mom does not wear it, but she dresses respectfully. Fair point. Fair point. We can't totally ignore them. I get what you're saying. There's a balance. I get it. It's difficult. It's hard, I know. Ishmael says, toxic parents who always put you down, never encourage you to do good in school. That's weird. Your parents wouldn't encourage you to do good in school? Do they put you down as in like you won't succeed or something? Silent Ghost says, I see, well, striving to obey every command of our Lord is getting difficult day by day. But problems like that motivates me to strive to become better rather than nagging about it. I thought the same for sis. Yeah, I'm sure there's some people definitely who think like you, brother. Totally. Nazir Khan says, the more we practice Islam, the more we getting benefit here. And after here too, the more we go far of Islam, first we have lost the life purpose and the left self-respect. Good point. Yes, we definitely have to make sure that we keep practicing, gain benefit, first, and then have our sense of purpose, and that in turn will get us self-respect. I agree. John Spot says, don't Muslims call each other beloved and stuff? I don't. They can say, oh, I love you for the sake of Allah. I don't say that. The word love is not a word you should use so easily. Habibi? Oh, some people use that. I don't. That must be a cultural thing. I ain't calling nobody that. I don't think men should use certain words with each other. They should be more masculine and not use words that could be misconstrued. Ishmael says, yeah, my mom says I'm worthless, who can never be successful. I'm sorry that your mother says that. Maybe your mother has this sort of stress in her heart that makes her lash out. The best thing you also can do is, if you live with your mom, save up your money, get your own little apartment, find a wife, get married, and get away from someone like that. And when she's home, just try to avoid her until she can learn to respect you. Keep yourself busy and don't let her get inside your head. And ask yourself, does she have a point? What does she mean? How does she value worth? How does she measure it? And then ask yourself if you accept that form of measurement. Silent Ghost says, we call each other brothers and sisters. Yes, and that's sufficient. I'm not calling anyone anything more than that. John Spot says, yeah, I won't say I love you because it makes you uncomfortable. How about we really like your content because it's brave, original? Yeah, that's more professional. Best keep it professional. Zakir says, did you hear about what happened to Dearborn? The LG are now against us. Before they thought we were allies against the bigoted right. Who is Dearborn? What happened in Dearborn? What's that? Farhan says, Assalamu alaikum, man. How are you, sister? Very good, brother. How are you? Truth and Knowledge says, Habibi is an Arab slang for my love. I admit I still use it with my homies. It's definitely cultural. Okay, good. Okay, mashallah. Thank you for letting me know. I thought it was cultural, yeah. Yeah, it's fine if you do it. I'm just saying that if someone is saying, I don't like it when people say anything like that word to me, it doesn't feel right, because in my culture, you know, that's something you say to your children, to somebody who you actually love. You know what I mean? You don't just say it willy-nilly. John says, you and Hakikachu, best YouTube Muslims. Well, that's kind. Please everyone pray for my father, he is not well. May I help your father? Dearborn, Michigan. Oh yeah, the Muslim parents were protesting against LGBT content in the schools. Oh yes, yes. It's awesome. Beautiful. I love that. I heard a lot of people covering that. Anthony Brian Logan covered it. Officer Tatum covered it. Truth and Knowledge posted about it on Instagram. Mashallah. Salty Cracker, he posted about it. Alhamdulillah. Yes. I'm very happy about that. Because those books are real, dude. I saw the bookmarks for my kid's school. And there's nothing I can do to get those books out besides tell my kid to stay away from them. Liberals are really pushing for graphic books that are not based on knowledge. Like, a liberal doesn't want your kid to learn how to butcher a chicken. And that is a skill that is very valuable. But they want your kid to learn about some of the most inappropriate things concerning intimacy, which shows you they have a very skewed sense of ethics. They should focus on better things, but it's really crazy. Very crazy. Silent Ghost says, or burn those books. I wish we could, but the school would make us pay for it, which would be fine. Then when we pay for it, they just buy it again. Right? So it's difficult. We have to unite, Christian conservatives and Muslim conservatives have to unite on that front. They have to really make sure that we recognize this is a problem for both of us, and we can go about arguing theology, but we have to make sure that our kids' schools are safe. Because the way things are going, more people will homeschool, but people like Anna Kasparian, others like that, They want to make homeschooling illegal. They do not want your kid to have a way out. And if you think about it, in the liberal society, both parents are working, your kid's at a government school, the inflation, high taxes, they're going to make it very difficult for a mama to stay home to educate the child herself. So they have their strategy of how do you separate the mother and the child? How do you get the government between you and your kid? But yeah, I won't send you a virus. I am from California. You can check us out on YouTube and add me on Facebook. No. I'm not just gonna believe what you say. You know, I don't have Facebook. You could have a YouTube channel. That doesn't mean you won't be a hacker or you don't have malcontent. Like I said, I've turned down people who had way more subs than me. Pretty famous people. And they didn't want to do Zoom. I say, no. I'm not desperate for views. I don't do what I do for views. It's not how I am. I don't trust anybody just because... No, it's just no. The people who I have done podcasts with, who've used StreamYard, I know them and their heart, and they have nothing to gain by doing it, and they're not my enemy, and I trust them, or they're just too professional. Zoom is the way to go. Super easy. And if someone doesn't want to use Zoom and they want to use StreamYard, well, you're the one inviting me. I have my standards. You can meet those standards or just not do it. Again, I'm not desperate. Other people are like, I'll do whatever you say to get on your show. I'll do whatever. No, I'm not like that. I'm not like that at all. I created like hundreds, like I have thousands of videos. And some of them only have 100 views. You can tell that I don't do what I do for views. Right? No clickbait, regular titles. I never say like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. I don't have like 7 sponsors in the channel, right? No. So you can tell that I do what I do because I love it. Because I'm authentic. No one is controlling me. No one is dominating me. I don't do what I do for clout. I do what I do because I like it. It makes me happy. And like I said, I have survived hackers, so I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect my family. And the hackers who hacked me were Muslims. They were Muslims. They were my own people. So if they'll do it, others will do it as well. Farhan says, we need to be more academically aggressive against the LG mafia, content and all. I am from India, and even though it is a country who stick to conservatism, majority Hindus have considered it part of lost culture. I think there is homo behavior in Hinduism, though, isn't there? Somebody told me once. I never thought of Hindus as conservative. I don't really know what they are. I'd have to really check that out. That's a good thing for me to study. Are Hindus conservative? Lightning speed. Mashallah, sister, you have great advice. I am born Muslim, bred in NZ, Nevada? Is NZ Nevada or New Zealand? However, still insecure on practicing Islam. For example, at a job, I will skip Salah. How should I develop confidence? Are you able to do Salah safely at work? When I was in the restaurant industry and I first converted to Islam, there's no way they would let me take a break. No way they'd do it. Absolutely not. And even when I told them, can I get off work early so I can go pray Asr prayer? I believe that they really started to hate me after that. Regardless of they pretended to be, oh, you know, we accept every religion, but it's so difficult. If you're able to do it and bring your rug and go somewhere secluded and face towards the Kaaba, you know, that'd be great. Do you have an OnlyFans page? No, but guess what? You're banned. Gonna ask me something as retarded as that. Do you have an OnlyFans? Does your mom? I bet your mom goes on there with a nice donkey and gets plowed. That's your mom. It's a really good apple juice. Assalamu alaikum, Huffringer. But yeah, if you're able to, do it. But I get it's difficult. Believe me, I know. Truth and knowledge. Yeah. But again, another thing I wanted to talk to you today was about my kid was at school, right? There was these girls who they dress really inappropriate. They have belly shirts on and cleavage. They're 2 grades older than my kid. And I gave my kid a serious talk about dirty girls are not meant to be around modest, pious Muslim children. And she goes, well, they're very nice and they protect me from bullies. And I said, you can protect yourself and you can find better friends and hang out with the nerds. I told her, because she has chess club, she likes chess club, and there's different like Lego clubs, there's different educational things. And I told her, hang out with the nerds. Don't hang out with the dirty girls, because dirty girls will ruin your reputation, and if you want a good husband, you're not going to get it if you're hanging out with the loose goose girls. And it took a lot of talking to get her to understand that just because someone's nice to you at school doesn't mean they're good to be around. And that you can have acquaintances. So I told her they're your schoolmates, acquaintances, and you don't have to be disrespectful to them, but you should not hang out with them, do not sit with them at lunch. Look how these girls present themselves. Short shorts, belly shirt, cleavage showing. You think that matches with a pious covered Muslim child? And she was like, no. And I said, exactly. Doesn't match. Does the snake hang out with the wolf? No, it doesn't. You have to hang out with like minds, not those who bring your reputation down. And so, one day, when I went to go get her, those 3 girls were acting really goofy, silly, loud, obnoxious. Total girls who need a punch in the face. They asked my kid, can I have a hug? And this girl had a belly shirt on. My kid said, no. and they said, oh, you don't want to give me a hug? And my kid said, no. And we just kept walking. But I told her I was very proud of her. Just say, like, no, you don't have to hug girls like that. Don't let girls dominate you. And so it was a very good learning experience. And I feel like she's listening. And I'm glad I saw those girls trying to get around my kid, you know. Omar says, Assalamu alaikum, Milahan, how are you? Hope you're doing well. I was watching your journey during reading the whole Quran, and I am proud of you and what you become. May Allah bless and reward you. Jazakallah khair, Omar. Very kind. John says, but yeah, I'll do a Zoom if you and Haqiqat hang out with us. I have a friend in Pakistan who would love that. Why would I hang... What do you mean hang out? I'm not meeting with you in person. What are you talking about hanging out? And you can't tell me if you and Daniel Haqiqat hang out. Do I have control of Daniel? No. Am I his wife? No. What kind of thing is that? If you want to get on with Daniel, talk to Daniel. I cannot tell Daniel what to do. Daniel doesn't tell me what to do. I've never spoken to Daniel in a DM ever. I've never spoken to his wife, even though she's totally cool. His wife is an epic legend. Halid. I like her a lot. She's total badass. But no, you can't make demands like that. You know, you just can't. That's not how it works. You're the one, I think you have less subscribers. Daniel has what, 100 something? You gotta learn to read the room. You just can't act like that. You know? Ew, we got another troll, Jason, in there. Gross. Why are there so many like weird, creepy trolls who are like talking about gross things? Omar Z says, will you ever come to Saudi Arabia and do Al-Hajj someday? Technically we're supposed to, but it's very expensive. You know, it's very expensive. It's not like it's easy. Zakir says, be cautious of Hakikachu. He is close with the sitting Hawarij. I don't know what that is. What is a sitting Hawarij? And what's your evidence? A lot of people hate Daniel because they're jealous of him. I don't, you know, I think he does a lot of great work. He has a lot of patience. P Sparkle says, do you know how to dance? Yeah, I don't dance anymore, but yeah, I can dance. Especially to a lot of Mexican music. Have you heard what's going on in Saudi? What's going on in Saudi? Yasmin says, sis, I'd really like to connect with you, inshallah. About what? I don't do DM culture. I don't like DM culture. Who is Daniel, by the way? Oh, Daniel Hakikichu is the Muslim skeptic. He has a really cool channel. He does a lot of different kind of content. You know, I'll ask Daniel, you are kind of presumptuous. Hey, it's how you come off. You know, I have to presume with the way in which you type. John says, I don't agree with him, but he's consistent and honest. What don't you agree with him on? Zakir says, Hakachu is friends with Haytham Saifuddin. Haytham Saifuddin is friends with Ahmad Musa Jibril. These people are Hawarij. I've never heard of those people. That's above my head, brother. I don't know who they are. I can't say. I thought Hawarij were like ancient people. I don't know. Have to learn more about that kind of stuff. I mainly study stuff like about Tawheed. Yeah. John Spot says, Islam. What don't you agree with him about Islam? Ishmael says, I'm seeing a lot of people speaking out against Hakikachu. Apparently he supports Salam al-Uda. Don't know what that is. Silent Ghost says, Saudi, well, the government is normalizing the Western culture and bringing the law of Western culture values. You already know the Western values, so I don't need to explain much. Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Saudi is one of the last bastions, as they say, so it's not surprising. It's not surprising. I mean, MBS, he's like going way more secular, right? The one with the 2 moons says, just take knowledge, don't either idolize nor demonize anyone, brother and sisters. Zakir says, Salman Auda is from the Saudi Hawarij from the 90s. How do you know if someone's Hawarij? What kind of things do they say? And explain why a Hawarij is bad. I hear this word a lot, but I can't say I actually know what it is. I just know when people say Hawarij is something bad, blasphemous, heretical, deviant, but I don't know exactly how. I kind of, but not really. Right? John Spot says, just Islam. He makes good arguments against social issues, though. Well, what don't you like about Islam? Are you an atheist? Truth and Knowledge says, there is nothing that Daniel Hakikichu has said that is outside Quran and Sunnah. We shouldn't make accusations based on I heard this and that. Zakir says, not Salam al-Uda, Salman Auda. No idea who that is. No, I'm a deist. Define deist. What is your creation? What do you mean? Silent Ghost says, long live of last Islamic kingdom. Hadith says, Salman Auda is a good man. Stop saying that. The 2 Moons says, it's just Arab things. We slang each other using old terms. Oh. Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. I thought Hawarij was an old term. John Spot, I believe in a natural God. What do you mean by natural God? You mean like, are you talking about like trees and the mountains? Define natural God. Ishmael says, Salman al-Uda is in Saudi prison for his moderate liberal views. Hakikachu supports him. So he's a liberal? Huh. Why does everybody always say there's all these people in prison in Saudi? Is that true? Because I hear people say that's not true. And I don't know Arabic, so I cannot watch Arabic news. But a lot of people seem to say that there's people in prisons and stuff. mean, I guess I could look up that person's name, but when it comes to Middle Eastern politics, fam, I don't understand any of it. Abdullah Al Mamoon says lots of people in prison in America. Yeah. Yeah. But we have criminals in prisons usually. But I'm just saying that people always say that Saudi locks up scholars of the Sunnah, and I don't really know what that means. I don't know anything about the politics except for what's going on in Mexico and what's going on in America and Canada and in the UK. That's the politics I pay attention to. I don't really know anything about the Middle East politics because we don't get the truth here. John Spell says, I'll come on your channel and talk about deism if you want. I don't do podcasts on my own channel. If you look through my thousands of videos, you'll never see one that I uploaded where I hosted someone else. It's always me going on their stream and they upload the video to their channel, and then I share it on my community page and save it on a playlist. That's how I do it. I use my phone to do YouTube. I don't use my computer. I don't have any of that. Ishmael says Salman Al-Uda was an extremist, now a reformist. Yasser Qadi also praised him. If Yasser Qadi praises him, that might be a problem. Abdullah says, yes, this is true. John Spa says, I don't like to debate on my channel either. It's vanity. I'm just saying I don't have the technology. Two Moon says, many use the term Hawarij for those who oppose the regimes. As for prison, not only Saudi regime, but every third world regime locks anyone who walks against their stream. More like Soviet Union. Okay, see, this is above my understanding. Blank blank, you know a lot about hackers and stuff like that. Can I get some advice? I want to buy these DVDs from eBay of old 1900s footage. But this only has 2 reviews, so I don't know if it's trustworthy. Well, eBay is different. You'll get a refund. If you get scammed out of your money on eBay, give a 1-star review and then your bank will give you your money back. That's quite different, isn't it? I've never bought anything on eBay. Yasmin Barad says, can I know what your policy is when it comes to connecting to sisters or on anyone online? Well, it depends on what you want to talk about. If you go to my subscribe star and you have like something that it can be answered in a couple of sentences, sister, I could think, but you need to be more clear on what it's about. I can't give you marriage advice. I can't give you religious advice. I cannot give you psychological advice. There's people who can help you with like mental emergencies and stuff. I'm not very equipped for that. You know what I mean? And I like to answer things publicly, so, you know, I try to avoid DM culture because then it would just pile up and I would get mentally unwell. Silent Ghost says, indeed, they are locking up rightly guided scholars so they cannot make revolt or speak against the MBS and the Crown Prince as shown by scholars who sell truth. Blank Blank says, I don't know if putting a DVD in your laptop can allow access to hackers. Oh, that's old technology. I don't think so. I mean, if you download information off of it, you know, that'd be a good question for a computer specialist. Apps versus code. Don't buy if you don't feel confident. There you go. Abdullah says, what does it mean, architecture in our minds? Go back to the beginning of the stream, fam, and see. Farhan, first learn what Hawarij is. You can learn about Hawarij from early source and from Arab Spring. You can understand Hawarij better. You made Arab Spring actually Arab Winter. Oh, okay. Hawarij is part of a... Osama says, Hawarij is part of a Murtadin who break the group of Muslim in the first 100 years of Islam and kill the Khalifa Uthman. Now there's a part of people called anyone refuse the liberal government. Interesting. But I thought it would be like, wouldn't the Hawarij be people who rebel against the conservative rule? I thought that the Hawarij were liberals. I hear this word a lot. And as a non-Arabic speaker and someone who doesn't live in the Middle East, terms like that go way over my head. Yasmin says, I wasn't looking for advice, but I understand if your preference is to abstain from such as it does pile up, as you mentioned, grant us tawfiq. What is it that you wanted to talk about, though? John says, but yeah, I'm trying to get Muslim guests. You and Kish are the bravest aside from my immediate Muslim friends. We only have one Muslim who hangs out with us on live streams. Well, what's your agenda? What's your angle? Girlfriend says, I woke up on your live notification. Had you on my way in the bus to work and missed my stop. Oh no, but I enjoyed a nice walk in the early morning on the road back to work. Mashallah, sorry sister, you missed your bus stop. Oh, sister. Usama says, no, Hawaj is not liberal. App versus codes. Arab world has too many political and historical events and well studied. Jackal Radio says, blessings, Milan. Blessings to you as well. Farhan says, Hawarij are actually who go extreme in Islam political dimensions and put their emotions over the Prophet's pathway. Oh, interesting. Yeah, see, this is the difficulty, is that people will use terms that take like a lot of studying, but I hear this word a lot. Hawarij. And I am like, what is that? There's a lot of Middle Eastern history that is quite above my head, like the politics of different, like of Egypt, of Libya, of Lebanon. This is over my head, fam. You know, because we don't get accurate information in America about Eastern politics. Abdullah says, I don't think any country has the fear of a scholar taking over the government these days. It's so improbable. Top and top. Reasons for the high cost of Hajj. The price of services during Hajj is very high, such as housing, transportation, and others. Second, the high cost helps its rationing the number of pilgrims. I mean, sure, totally, yeah. Moon says, the original Hawarij are those who opposed the Imam Ali when he put a truce with Muawiyah. They were with Ali at first, but then turned against him since they became cursed. Oh, okay. So, basically, people use, are you saying, like, they use the word Hawarij as a synonym for people who don't accept authority? Because that sounds like what you're saying. Basically, that they were people who wouldn't obey the Imam or the leader of the Khalifa, and then they caused fitna. So people, are you saying that they use it as a word of fitna? Like, oh, you're Hawarij means like you're doing a fitna. John says, we have two guests come on talk about their YouTube channels for an hour. Then we open the stream and usually a dumpster fire happens after that. A dumpster fire, that's funny. GoFrame says, the verb haraja means went out in Arabic. So maybe the verb gives you an idea. Oh, okay. Like they're astray, they've gone out of their way. Top says, this is necessary to maintain the safety of pilgrims because the increase in number leads to severe overcrowding. I heard about a stampede once at Mecca. Yeah. Bottlenecks may cause deaths. Yeah. I mean, I'm just, when people say do Hajj, it's like I don't have any money. Gotta pay rent. I'm not saying that Hajj should be cheap. I'm just saying like I don't have the money for that. I never left America before. You know, I don't even know how you get a visa or whatever. I don't even know how you visit another country. I know I have to do Hajj, but I can't do Hajj right now. You know? Modern day Shia hate Muawiyah like the Khawarij did, says Ishmael. Don Q, it means renegades. Oh, that's a good verb. Or wait, a noun, person, place, or thing, renegade. John says, I think you and Daniel can hold your own. I think so. Omar says, I think once you'll visit in the Middle East, you'll enjoy a lot of stuff. Especially food in the Middle East, because food is good and food is life. Yeah. Oh yeah. I bet you I would go crazy for the food. No doubt about that, that's for sure. Abdullah says, I've seen Hawarij used by Muslims to other Muslims who they considered extremists and they don't agree with. I think you're right, yeah. John says, apply for a passport? I guess it's how you do it, but I've never done that before. Abdullah says, you can go to Hajj and not get a hotel and just live there or sleep at the masjid, I think. I'm a woman, I'm gonna have a hotel. You know how women are. I'm not gonna travel to the desert and sleep in a masjid with strangers. I need to be in a hotel, the nicest I can afford, to be safe, and to have breakfast in the morning. I understand people go through the tough Hajjs where they want to have like minimum everything. I need to have a tour guide. I need to have security. I'm a no. The first time leaving America, no, man. I gotta have like, I gotta feel like I'm a tourist. I'd be scared to be by myself. I don't want to tough it out, Abdullah. I don't want to tough it out. Others can do that. I am not that kind of a person. I want to feel safe. If I don't want to get lost, they got bathroom and showers for free there. I'd rather have a hotel, a private room with a lock, people who will clean the beds for me, you know. Gofrain says, I have to start work. It's lovely watching your content, keeping you in my prayer, sister. Good to see you, Gofrain. You've been a follower for the channel for a long time. Have a great time at work. John says, they have Hajj packages. They cost bread, though. I mean, yeah, which is fine. I'm just saying I don't have the money. So when people say, are you going to do Hajj? I mean, inshallah in the future, but not right now. Rent's got to be paid. Abdullah says, I seen you and Hamza on the podcast. It was so funny. I love that podcast. I didn't think it was funny. I hate Hamza. I don't like Hamza, Pigpen, Viper Den at all. I hate him. I hate him. I hate him and all his fans. I hate him so much. Don Q says, I think Hajj is like 5 or 6K per person. Subhanallah, from the US. Oh my gosh, that's like, no, that's so much money, man. Which is fine, you know, but I can't afford that, dude. No way. I am not a rich person. I am a poor person. Omar Z says, I live in Medina, by the way. Oh, dang. Lucky, look at you. Zakir says, you can ask a sister to do Hajj for you. No, I don't want no one to do Hajj for me. No. I want to eventually do it myself. Abdullah says, they can put you in a group. It was cheaper before COVID. Yeah, I would go in a group. Top and Top says, third, the Saudi government is making very great efforts to provide excellent services to pilgrims, and this costs a lot of money. And the fees that the Saudi government takes do not exceed $800 per person. Totally. You don't have to justify the price, brother. I know it's good that it costs a lot. I'm just saying I'm a poor person and I don't have money. Ishmael, I am more worried about the hot weather during Hajj. That's so true. I'm a snow person. Nafi says, from Bangladesh, Hajj costs 5 to 6 lakh. I don't know what lakh is. Ishmael says, plus I'm saving up for marriage. Can't afford Hajj. There you go. Just save $50 to $100 a month. It will add up. I'm saving little by little. Well, that's smart. That's true. Jack says, wow, so many lovely places to visit in Italy, Milan, for a religious geek like you especially. Yeah, I definitely want to go back to the homeland. Calabria. My family immigrated from Calabria, Italy. I want to go back to the homeland, and I want to see the Colosseum. Oh my goodness. Oh, I want to see the Colosseum so bad in Rome. Just thinking about all the warriors and the slaves who fought to the death in that pit. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Usama says, 10 years Prophet Muhammad and Sahaba can't go to Hajj. Don't be sad. Hey, that's a good point. Omar said, there is a men's section and a women's section in Masjid al-Haram. And there are people sleep in Masjid al-Haram. So you are safe either way, but hotel is way safer anyways. Yeah, I'm going in a hotel. I'm a nervous person when it comes to getting around strangers. I gotta feel safe and like totally safe. Like no. I'm not these kind of people who can go backpacking and just go on an adventure. I am not that kind of person. I don't even travel around California unless I have someone with me. No. I'm just not that kind of person. Like to go to another country, to fly on a plane, to go where there's signs in Arabic. I don't speak Arabic. To be around so many strangers, I'd be petrified. I have to have a tour guide. You know? John says, the Muslim metaphysician is Calabrian too? Oh, I did a podcast with him. Don Q says, you should consider learning coding and getting a remote job. You can live in Cali, right? Could easily learn 6 figures. I can do online stuff, like people donate to my subscribe store. I have some side hustles I do online, you know. But coding is like computers and math, isn't it? Coding is like, oh, that seems kind of hard, isn't it? I'm not really good at editing and stuff, and coding sounds very hard. John says, I'm from the Bay, but I recently moved to Sacramento. Don Q says, no, it's not math. What is it? I don't really know what coding is. Abdullah says, coding is no fun. Stay away. That's funny. Yeah, math is hard for me to focus on. I like words. This apple juice is great. Yeah, I had some classmates who went for coding. They were in the military, and they went into coding. I haven't talked to them in a long time. Hope they're doing okay. I had some friends who went into coding, and then they went to the military. Haven't seen them since. I don't even have their number anymore. I used to have them on Facebook, but I deleted my Facebook and I lost contact with them. Shamania says, what do you mean by girls being controlling to other girls? I forgot. Oh, like a woman's beauty controlling an uglier girl's consciousness, which is true. Ibn Ahmad says, depends on the field of coding we're talking about. Oh, gee, see? I don't even know. Joanne says, I can tell you're from the Bay, too. I'm not from the Bay. I'm from Philadelphia, Utah. When you say you're from an area, that means, like, as a child, you grew up there. You know? I moved to California in 2007. I'm not a California child. I'm a Utah and Philly child. California is a terrible state that should be cut off from America. If I leave California, the United States should build a wall to cut off California from the rest of the country and let another country have California. I think even Mexico doesn't want California back. Mexico would be like, no, we don't want them filthy blue-headed liberals. Don says, it's simply how to communicate with computers. Code tells us a computer what actions to take. Oh man. That is intense. Computers are scary. Ishmael says, is Tupac still an icon in California? Yeah, for people who want to pretend to be thug life. You know? Omar says, my mother is American and was a Christian, and she reverted to Islam, alhamdulillah. She's very sensitive to go outside of the USA if she's with someone like you said. Yeah, I'm the same, man. Usama says, can you imagine that 100 years ago Muslims can go to Hajj without permission from a stupid government? Well, the thing is, Saudi Arabia has to know who's going in their country because there's people who want to hurt them. There's people who want to hurt Saudis. Omar says, but in Saudi, she can go alone now because most people in Saudi are the nicest people you'll ever meet. I think you'll like here, inshallah. It's not about nice. Crazy people can live in any country. Crazy people, evil people can live in any country. And I never would go to another country by myself. Like, that is the worst thing. That'd be irresponsible. I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm an auntie. I can't just be traveling to places by myself. You know? Even if I go to fly to Montana or fly to Texas, somewhere, I have to have somebody with me. I don't like going by myself. Zakir says, there's poop in the California streets. Yeah, there is. About 2 months ago, somebody pooped right outside my apartment building. Like the local apartment buildings in my area. Somebody pooped right there. Yeah, there's a lot of dog poop and a lot of human poop. By my local area neighborhood, yeah, you'll see it. It's very sad. Saudi Arabia is very safe. Doesn't matter. I get nervous walking alone even in America. You know? I don't like it. Huffringer says there's poo poo from the North Bay. It's so true, dude. There's so much poo. Truth and Knowledge says, statistically speaking, Saudi Arabia is probably one of the safest places on the planet. However, most Muslims are use a trusted religious guide for Hajj because it's practical and more effective. True, but never. It would not be smart to tell a woman, go to another country where you don't speak the language, all by yourself, and you've never left your country before. No way, dude. How lonely as well. Who wants to go by themselves? You know? No, if I ever did Hajj, I'm bringing my whole family. I'm bringing my husband, bringing my kids, and we're going with a tour guide. Ew, Josh says Milahan is from Berkeley? That's disgusting. Ew, never say I'm from Berkeley. Ew. Berkeley's the most liberal hellhole. Ew. Ibn Ahmad says, right, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, prohibited it. Yeah, exactly. A woman can't go Hajj by herself. It's not permissible for a woman who believes in Allah on the last day to make a journey of one day and night unless she is accompanied by a mahram, husband, or any relative to whom she is prohibited to marry. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And there's a reason for that. A woman alone, it's just not safe, dude. I don't go to the grocery store by myself. I always go with my husband. I always like to have somebody with me. I don't like to be alone anymore. It's just too many things can happen to a lonely Muslim woman by herself. Is more vulnerable. If I can avoid it, I'd avoid it. I couldn't imagine being on a plane for that many hours, going to a new land. Oh, that'd be terrible. I'd be lonely. Who am I gonna talk to? Can't just talk to strangers. You know, that'd be totally scary. Omar Z says, you'll enjoy to visit Saudi Arabia, inshallah, sister. No doubt about it. Fringer says, what age do you think is the best for Hajj? I don't think it's about age. I think it's about how much iman you have. Are you going to appreciate it? Then do it. Usama says, most of Arabs are from Arabic Peninsula, and the Arab Peninsula is for all Muslims, not only Saudi. True, I feel you on that. But that don't mean I'm going to have money or the ability to do that. Ishmael says, me as an introvert never traveled outside London. It's scary. You sound like me, man. You sound like me. Yeah. I'm a little bit of a hermit sometimes. I'm like, we have to go where? We have to go down here. It's like, why? It's pretty, but I like being in places that I'm familiar with so I can get lost. One scary thing about traveling is if you get lost, your GPS don't work, you don't have an old school map, your car breaks down, you're in some trouble, man. Like my grandpa, he can drive anywhere in the United States. With a map, he knows he can get around. My mom too. My mom, my dad, and my grandpa are people who can travel anywhere. Like, okay, you want to go to Arkansas? Vámonos, let's go. Me, I'm like, no. We have to have a tour guide. We have to be safe. You know, we have to know exactly where we're stopping. The hotels have to be booked. We gotta know where we're gonna eat. I'm not like that. I don't have that adventurer, explorer spirit. Like, I like camping, stuff like that. But when it comes to traveling to new places, you know, I'm not that kind. Ishmael says, there's no place like home. That always sticks in my head. Yeah, it's true, right? Because home is the familiar. And the familiar can feel safer. It can feel less, you know, cortisol. Isn't that what it is? The stress hormone is cortisol. So, yeah, that's something to think about. Yes. Oh, and I wanted to talk to you. Okay, so I talked to you about how people feel sick in the city, right? How you can make your home more comforting. We talked about the metaverse. Told you about how my kid was like really brave and standing up to those dirty girls, and whatnot. Huffinger says The Wizard of Oz? You mean the show with Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow? Juan says, growing Afghan community. You would fit in. I'm not from Afghanistan. Why would I fit in with Afghanistan people? I'm Italian and Cherokee. The group I get along with the best are Mexicans. Those is my homies. I never even met a person from Afghanistan. I never even met somebody from there. Usama says, everything about our religion just got tough because of Arabic liberal government are more liberal than West. Do you think that they're... I don't know if... what do you mean by they're more liberal than American? I mean, America's pretty liberal, dude. You know? Omar Z says, just curious, and sorry if I'm asking this, but when did like wearing niqab? And did you made it yourself, or is there a store that sells niqab? I bought some on Etsy, and I bought some on Amazon. When I first said my shahada, I said I'm gonna wear the niqab on my YouTube channel, and I'm gonna wear it because it's time for change, and I felt a compulsion to wear it. But where I buy my niqabs is on Etsy and Amazon, because there is no Islamic shop. No. Don Q says, they are not more liberal. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, America has gone so far off the boat when it comes to liberalism that we got men dressing up as women and dancing in front of kids. You know? That is like something way more demonic. I think that the East is on its way to becoming liberal, but you know. Usma says, and your leaders are walking step by step to the road who USA made it. Yeah, that's going to be a struggle for you guys. Jacko Radio says, if the West becomes Christian again, they'll not be so liberal. True. If there's more Orthodox Christian conservatives and Orthodox conservative Muslims, oh yeah, we could turn this ship around. But we have to work together. We cannot just be fighting each other, because the liberals are really uniting against us. Abdullah Al-Mamoun says, America is getting more liberal every day. Yeah, it's depressing. Farad says, oh, we actually had a topic for this stream. We were all talking random like stupid, I just saw. Oh yeah, but we already technically covered most of the things I was talking about in the beginning. So now it's kind of like more free-for-all. What's Etsy shop? Etsy.com. It's a place where people can sell their handmade stuff. So there's some wonderful Muslim sisters who sell Islamic clothing on Etsy.com. Will you learn Arabic? I have Tajweed. But, I mean, eventually. Blank Blank says, I'm Afghan. Oh, there you go. Truth and Knowledge says, the Arab world in terms of liberalism is best described as what liberals were ideologically 20 years ago in the West. Oh, for real? That far? You think it's that far now? That's scary. Ishmael says, American Muslims tend to be more liberal than UK Muslims. I didn't believe it until I saw the evidence. That's interesting. Huh. That's interesting. What made you come to that conclusion? I've never been to the UK, so I can't really say. Usama says, Christianity died in the French Revolution. For France, the Jacobins, didn't the Jacobins like massacre a bunch of priests? Yeah. French Revolution was brutal. That was a dark time. They had the guillotine. Do you know that machine called the guillotine? That's a pretty scary thing. Slice and dice. Slicing and dicing. Snipping and snapping them necks. Yeah. I read a lot of Napoleon Bonaparte's biography. And he was an intense dude. I'll probably redo some videos on him for the channel. Truth and Knowledge says, not all Arab countries, but many are becoming 90s versions of Western liberalism. Oh, that's scary. That means like in 20 years they're going to have drag queen story hour and the problems we have here. Zakir says, peaceful secularists. That's a good one. Right, the Jacobins with their guillotine. We're mostly peaceful. Yeah. I wish I could remember off the top of my head without grabbing my book off the bookshelf. The Jacobins were brutal. Jacko Radio says, most Muslims in the UK are quite liberal. Don't be fooled by Taoist scene here. Oh, you live in the UK? Fish and chips. Fish and chips. You want a cup of tea? You want some English breakfast? Hey, don't you English people call cookies biscuits? How dare you? How dare you? Amor says, when you pray, do you recite in Arabic or English so far from your learning in Islam? I say it in Arabic and then I say it in English. So it's like, I'll say the phrase in Arabic and then I say it in English so I remember what it is. If I only said it in Arabic, I forget what it means in English. If I only say it in English, I'm gonna forget what it means in Arabic. Osama says, but they can't do the same to Islam because it's a complete religion. Maybe Muslims lose the path, but Islam's still strong. Hopefully, inshallah, right, fam? That's very true. We want Islam to stay strong, to do good. But it takes all of us putting our best foot forward in the dawah scene to be the best we can be, to keep learning, and to keep talking to people, doing our best, and then resisting liberal temptation. Right? Don Q says, Ishmael, that's because the UK Muslims are able to create their own ethnic enclave communities and keep their identity. Oh, that's sad though. It's sad if the people have to separate by their ethnicities. Because there's a lot of people from Pakistan over there, right? In the UK. The refugees. They get a lot of boats. The UK gets a lot of boats, don't they? People coming on those boats. So they have Somalians and others. Moroccans and Algerians or something. I don't know. America, we have a lot of Chinese and Mexican, Guatemalan, and Salvadorian immigrants. Yeah, we get Latin America here. And most of Latin America is Catholic. So, we don't really get a lot of Muslim immigrants. We have a lot of Americans joining Islam. Right? Jack Garrido says, I'm waiting on Milan UK tour. I'd have no problem with Islam if we had more Milans. Oh, thanks, man. That's very kind for you to say. That's good to hear. Yeah, it'd be very cool to visit the UK. I want to eat some fish and chips. John says, Bismillah ar-Rahim ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillahi al-Amin, Rahman al-Rahim, Kuli al-Din. Omar says, we do our best to get closer to Allah. We're not perfect. None of us are perfect. And even sometimes I get lazy to pray. And it's a struggle. I can do the best I can do to get closer to Allah, you know? Yeah, just keep on keeping on. Don Q says, you have many parts that are majority Muslim in London. Birmingham I hear a lot about. But one sheikh said, Birmingham is a fitna. And I was like, what's that? And he's like, it's too much fitna. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. Ishmael says, UK has a strong Salafi community. Oh, that's true. All the American Dawah channels took inspiration from the UK Muslims. Well, that's a good point. You know what? I did notice that. Who is it? Like Abu Hadija? I know he's a UK dude, right? Salafia. Well, yeah, there's I mean, if you think about it, a lot of UK Muslims are in the Dawah scene on YouTube. That's a good point. Ali Dawah Needs Dawah is from the UK. Muhammad Hijab is from the UK. Yusuf Pondering Yusuf, right? He's from the UK. Hamza Den Pigpen is from the UK. I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, that's true. Usama says, I'm always asking, did liberalism a peace ideology? People just believe in it, or there is some power pushed in? I mean, liberalism, of course, has force behind it. But it's a soft form of force. Passive-aggressive force. controlling of corporate HRs, controlling of education systems, controlling of social media. That's how they do it. It's not just with, it's not like guns blazing. Their power is a controlling of information. Dawn says, I do wish the UK had America's freedom of religion. But isn't the UK pretty free in religion? You guys got masjids over there and mosques and stuff, right? Don't they? I don't know. But you got the Church of England. I mean, England is a Christian country. It always has been. England was founded by Christians, wasn't it? I'm telling you, Milan, Sec is the place. Women walking around in niqabis is nothing unusual here. Interesting. Omar says, one thing I'm very impressed with some Muslims is getting up to prayer at Fajr. Even they slept for 2 hours, they still get up to pray al-Fajr just in time, which is very cool how they manage for Salah. That's true. Truth and Knowledge says, colonialism pushed liberalism to gain power it has today. It kept its power through media and modern day imperialism. There you go. Truth and Knowledge knows what's up. Nafis says, many poor South Asian women go to Saudi Arabia for house waro, and some accuse the Saudi people were cruel to them. Well, that's sad. Dawn says, it's not the same as America, especially regarding schooling. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the education system in the UK. Usama says, I think without the military power, there is no ideology will stay in World War II as a model. Oh, interesting. Apps versus codes. Do you believe all ethnic people deserve their own nation? After the World War II, the idea of a nation for each ethnic people became popular. I mean, yeah, if people want to have just their own group, that's fine. I'm mixed race, and my child is mixed race. My entire family now is mixed race. So, we don't have a nation in terms of a tribe. Like, the Cherokee people is who I'm a part of. That's a nation. The Italian people is a nation. The Welsh, the Russians, it's a nation. Right? The Apache tribe, that's a nation. And then America is another form of a nation. But I don't mind if people just want to stick within their own nation. What are you going to do? People get to choose. That's the beauty of it, right? Everybody has a right to choose who they want to be with and have their tribe and culture, right? Ishmael says, have you seen Abu Musab and Shamsi refuting Ali needs dawah? Abu Musab, is that the dude with the shaved head and the glasses, right? Isn't that him? Shamsi, I watch him a lot. Yeah, Ali needs dawah. Yeah. Hey, going monotheist, good to see you. All these nations are made of bid'ah. Huffringer. It seems like everyone in California is mixed race. Hey, that's a good point. That's a very good point. Hey, that's a really good insight. That's really true. Yeah, because Mexico and Latin America, when you come across the border, you come into California usually because it's a sanctuary state. And, Latino people are great people. So I can see why people like myself want a race mix with those people. Blank Blank says, do you have any book recommendations on liberalism or anywhere to learn about it? Like the history and the start of it and all I need to know? That'd be a good question for Daniel Hakikachu. That's a good one. That'd be like a whole series. A book just on liberalism I don't have. I took political science classes and learned about liberalism through that. That's a good thing. You could probably find a good book though. Don't know a name of one. Usama says, after the World War II, the Cold War between the liberal USA and Soviet. Yeah, poor Soviet Russia, and, they had their drama, we had ours. What are you gonna do, Jacko Radio says, UK definitely has religious freedom, to be fair. Ishmael says, yes, Abu Musab is really funny. He's currently at war. The Sunni sect Deobandi. I hear this word Deobandi. I have no idea what it is. Rashid Doha says, what was the most difficult thing for you with converting to Islam? Dealing with other Muslims, their suspicions, their judgments. That was hard. You know, people lash out real quick. I'd say Muslims, I heard this phrase once said, I'm glad I joined Islam before I met Muslims. I feel the same. I'm glad I learned to love Islam and I didn't join because I liked Muslims. I did it because of many reasons, but Tawheed and the actual, doctrines of Islam is what I liked. And others people, they join for, like, oh, I say my Shahada, or all of a sudden I'm this, I'm that. Like, I studied Islam for over a year before I took my Shahada. That worked for me. Moon says, respect to Omar, speaking of myself, I just go to Fajr, but that isn't heroic at all, because I am bad in many ways, and as God said, soul would benefit from it, faith, unless it had good deeds encased with many. Oh yeah, that's the case with some people. I mean, hopefully we all can do better, but it is good that you go to Fajr, That's pretty cool. That's pretty early sometimes. Sometimes it's at 4:30. Sometimes it's at 5:15. Sometimes it's at 6:15, 6 o'clock. When it's at 4:30 a.m., you have to be safe when you drive. I think in that time, sometimes it's better to just pray at home, Usama says, the question is, why is it forbidden for Muslims to have the power, and when Muslims had the power, everybody call him a terrorist? Because liberals want power, Jacko Radio says, Hamza made it sound silly reading and understanding anything about it before joining. Yeah, Jacko Radio, you're right, he did. That's why I hate him. He mocked me for studying Islam before taking my Shahada, and I got so mad with oops. Okay, hopefully we're back. But yeah, he said that to me. It was insane that Hamza's den thinks it's foolish to study before you join something. What a ginger fool. Blank blank, because of propaganda maybe. Rashid Doha says, was it hard giving up alcohol and pork? I never really drank a lot, so it wasn't hard to give it up. And pork, super easy to give up. I like beef more and sushi more than pork. Not a problem. Usama Zan says, one day we will save this world after all. Inshallah. Omar says, well, I'm off now. I hope you have a great night, Milan. And you too, chat. Well, bless you all. Have a good night. Good night, Omar. Lord Humungus. Humungus. That sounds like a play on words, like for humongous. Humongous. What do you think about a woman's testimony being half that of a man in Islam? Well, for me, I've seen a lot of treachery in women. I've seen women become so vindictive and insane that they turn into an Ishtar. They turn into a psychopath. There's a lot of stories in mythology and from cultural experiences of psychopathic women making up lies just to get back at their ex-lover. So why not? I don't get offended by that. If I have a brother and a woman is accusing him of something, she could be doing it because he dumped her and went and got someone else, and she's bitter and wants revenge. So good. Women can be super vindictive, dude. Why not have 4 witnesses? I mean, I'm not that way, right? But there are some crazy women in the world, so that's how I look at it. Ray Face says underrated channel. Oh, thanks, fam. I'm just shadow banned. I know YouTube shadow bans me because the analytics don't make sense, but it's alright. Jacko Radio says, you did great. I was cheering you on in the background. Oh, thanks, fam. Somebody was, right? Danal says, civilized America consists in joining a medieval cult, while the Persians and Arabs, the first Muslims, are leaving it in masses. Oh, well, no one forced you to be in the chat. But thank you for calling me civilized. Even though you're being a sassy little troll, Denial. Blank blank, that's very true. Lord Humongous. Whoa. Ishmael, Hamza never talks about Aqidah and doesn't refute the people of Ahlul Bidah The scholars of Ahl Sunnah didn't constantly debate Christians like Hamza does. So true, dude. So freaking true. So true. Usama says, what do you think about the girls who mix the feminism and Islam? Well, it's a dangerous duo, dude, like oil and water. Ibn Ahmad says, by the way, since we mentioned Aqidah, there is a really good poem about summarizes the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah. It's called Sulam al-Wasul. There's an English translation of it online. Oh, fascinating. Blank Blank says, I meant your response to Lord Humongo's question is very true. Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, there's some crazy women, dude. I don't know, man. The fact that some women will lie about them being like someone forcing themselves on them is scary, man. Divorce courts. Look at divorce courts. Look how some women go bonkers. It shocks me sometimes, man. You know? Can you recommend any book where it has a vindictive woman? Yeah, the Epic of Gilgamesh. Greek mythology. Hera, the wife of Zeus. How she cursed Heracles because Zeus had another woman. Hera, she punished Heracles by making him go insane, doing his 12 labors, and then Hera made Hercules go insane to where he took out his own family. The Greek mythology of Jason, where he has a woman and 2 sons, and she gets so angry at Jason that she ends up executing her 2 kids because of him. The Greek tragedies are filled with crazy women, dude. Filled with it. I love Greek mythology. It's great to read about. The Greeks and the Romans have a lot of stories about crazy women. But Ishtar in the Epic of Gilgamesh, Shakespeare's Macbeth, Lady Macbeth is crazy. Truth and Knowledge said, no need for books of Indian women, just watch the Kardashians. That's funny. Yeah, man. So when people are like, oh, aren't you offended that Islam says a woman's testimony is half? It's like, no. If I was in court and there's a crazy lesbian in there, she's being rude to me, she's insane, I'd be like, can we get another witness, please? Because this lady's crazy. No way, man. I have seen so many crazy women that it's like, But the feminists, they romanticize other women so much. I show you posts. Oh, women don't get violent. They only use words and blah, 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 blah. It's like, no, man. There's some crazy ladies in the world. Two Moons says, I don't like ideologies. But as for feminism, in some regions, females are really oppressed, just like everybody actually. So I would tolerate with some. I feel you on that. I feel you on that. That there are some women who are heavily abused. But I look at the American version of feminism where they're actively destroying motherhood, trying to make men eunuchs, you know. Bleh. If you're a woman in, I don't know, let's say you live in what, North Korea, and I don't know. But for me, I look at American liberal feminists and how they're so close to occultists, man. It's just really crazy. Usama says, most of Muslim girls in Muslim countries make that mix. I'm telling you this for your imagination on Muslim society. We're in the same path. We have the same problem because of the media. Yeah. I saw a horrible news story that said Saudi girls are doing pole dancing to break the stigma. So they were promoting Saudi women being strippers on a regular news channel. I left some mean comments, but it was insane. And in the comments section, somebody wrote, this is why Western media should be banned, because everything they promote promotes degeneracy, which is true. Feminists were like, that kind of a title. Oh, we're breaking the stigma around pole dancing for Saudi women. There's a stigma for a reason, man. and it shouldn't be normalized. Some stigmas should remain there. Ishmael says, Abu Musab said Ali needs dawah more than anyone after he said Allah enters into his creation. Yeah, that's the topic for... I think I saw his video on that. One Way to Paradise, or One Way to Something is his channel name, right? Yeah, when you get into topics of like that, I try to avoid that because I'm not an expert yet. But let them go at it. They know what's up. Jacko Radio says, feminists have gone so far, they can't define a woman is anymore. If we can't unite against that, what can we unite on? Yeah, Jacko Radio, totally. Matt Walsh, I think, did a good job with his What is a Woman documentary. Man, it's crazy, isn't it? Totally insane. Pretty scary, though, too, when you think about it. It's so insulting, like, to be a biological female who can give birth, grow a human, and then to have somebody just be like, nope, a dude in a dress is the same as you. Rit NLI says, I have recently gotten into reading books. My challenge is getting to read books that can teach me something. Many of them I read are not informative online. Do you have very good book suggestions? So, what is it that you want to learn? That's the first question. Don't read books online. Read books on paper. You're going to dry your eyes out, and your phone will distract you with notifications, and you won't get through with what you read. And you cannot annotate very well on a phone. So you should only read articles online, but you should read physical paperback books. And you can get them from the library for free. Depends on what kind of wisdom you want to go with. What is it that you're trying to learn? You know, that's the first question. Jones says, I don't think One Way could stand up to Hakikatu, though. I don't know about that. I think they both have their strengths. I know that Abu Musayyab, was that how you say his name again? He doesn't like Daniel, but I think they both have their good things they do. Osama says, but the media is not only a problem. If you tell some kid go and drink alcohol and his parents beat him up and force him to stop, he'll never drink again. Put that model in the society. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Alcoholism has killed many people in my family. Many people. Ishmael, I recommend Ibn Taymiyyah book Aqidah al-Wasitiyah. Good book for people who want to learn the true Aqidah. Interesting. Yeah, I have one book of Ibn Taymiyyah on my bookshelf up there. Haven't gotten around to it yet. Saving it for the channel later on in the future. But hopefully we'll get there. But we've studied quite a lot. I've studied quite a lot. It's been great, you know. But a lot of people do like Ibn Taymiyyah. That's for sure. Seems to be very popular. For whatever reason. Everyone has their own reason, you know. But he is quoted a lot, which is fine, which is great. But for right now, my reading list is pretty full. In the future, when I take book recommendations, I'll make sure to ask you so that we can learn. Usama says, Ibn Taymiyyah is the good model of how an imam should be. Interesting. Have you read his books? Don Q says, you should read Al-Ghazali. A lot of people say that one too. They say that name too. Lord Humongous says, how can free will exist if God has already written down our destinies and know what path we are going to go down? That's the beautiful paradox that I love talking about in philosophy. The good part is the way I look at it, I have a decision, like this just mathematical code of endless possibilities, and I get to choose what code I want, and I can tread upon that road, and at the end of the day, I'll be held accountable for it. But I made the choice, left foot or right foot, when to blink, when not to blink, and I have my consciousness and inner morality to guide me, but I also have temptations from the shaitan. So there's all these components that are contributing to what choices we make that'll weigh on our scales on if we did it out of malice or ignorance, and how we should be punished depending on how we exercised our free will. who misguided our free will, how we shaped it, channeled it, and perfected it. That's the beautiful enigma that free will is. It's such a wonderful enigma. Free will is definitely a very unique, difficult concept. You know, in philosophy, they'd be like, well, if God created you and He knew where you were going to end up, then you don't deserve hell. It's like, no, I don't think it's that simple. I mean, life on this planet is so complex. Just the root system of a tree, the cells that make up a shark's stomach. It's so amazing. This life is so beyond what we can think of. Oh, it's just fantastic. So free will for me, I know I have a free choice. I cannot outsmart, outwit the creator and sustainer of the cosmos. And how the scales will be weighed is a mystery, and it should remain a mystery. Because if we knew the key to how we'll be judged on our free will, people would look for loopholes and scapegoats and try to subvert the system and master the system. But if key code to the system is hidden from us concerning our free will, then we know how to strive and keep going. And the allure, the enigma, the mystery, the hiddenness, the unknown, the unseen, keeps us on our toes, keeps our minds hopeful, shooting for the higher goal. And in that way, we can be honest with ourselves if we really tried or not. You know? What you're describing isn't free will, in my opinion. If a path is for you is already chosen by God, then you no longer really have a genuine choice. The choice is an illusion. Yeah, but I get the... Free will is a very nerdy topic. Okay? It's not as simple as a secular liberal atheist neckbeard likes to say wearing a fedora. We don't really know how we'll be judged fully. We don't know how far our free will goes, how our decisions will add up on the scales of judgment. You have to be judged. You have to be held accountable for your actions. And each action you took, you decided yes or no. Okay, you chose that code. You went to that code. At the end of that road, the Creator will be there. There is a mystery you just have to accept. Okay? You just have to accept the fact that in English, in language, our brains cannot fully figure out the wonderful puzzle that is the relationship between judgment and free will. Anyone who pretends to have cracked the code isn't being serious. A logical witticism from a 17th century philosopher is just one point of it. I know I had free will, but that doesn't mean I get to do what it like some people can. Well, you know what people do with free will sometimes? They'll say, well, I'm not rich, and if God wanted me to be rich, therefore He'd make me rich, therefore I won't try. So if I don't get rich, it's God's fault. But God gave you the capacity to exercise those skills, and you chose not to. But you'll go on a different path then, that you'll be held accountable for. And that's another coded path for you that you didn't know you had. And on Judgment Day, the mystery will come out about how you weighed up, how you measured up. That's just how it is. Right? No atheist or deist, theist, whomever, can crack the code entirely on how free will binds, mixes, and blends with judgment. And no one can know, because we haven't died yet. So what we should do is we shouldn't start whining, oh, well, if I have free will, then it's not fair if I get punished for my actions. Don't think like that. Think like, you know what? I have free will. I don't know my destiny. I don't know what God has decided for me. But I'm going to try my best. When I fall, I'm going to get back up. I'm going to keep on keeping on. And I'm going to become better every day. And that's all I got to do. Just got to try. You have to go for the finish line without knowing who's at the finish line. Right? If you're in the race towards death, you can't look over your shoulder every 2 seconds. You keep on keeping on until you go there. You know? That's how I look at it. Like, if I sat down and said, well, if God wanted me to be good, He would have given me a better mom or a better dad. It's God's fault. No. I have a choice to be like my parents or to do better than them. And maybe I'll fail, but I still tried. You know, God gives you chances. It's like the matrix code, the maze of life, the miraculous nature of it. Atheists always try to make it so dead because they put words together in a very logical way, mind you. They think, well, we figured out the answer to the universe. There's no free will because X, Y, and Z. And God can't exist because if you really had free will, blah, blah, blah. It's like, man, we don't know everything, and we can't pretend to know everything. The way the birds think is a different way than the wolf thinks. Human thinks different than a monkey. You know, a crow thinks different than a shark. We all have our own brains, and we're limited by that. And our own brains have faults. So we have to do our best and hope that we're on the right path. I'd rather take my chances living a good life and being judged for my free will than living a bad life and thinking I won't be held accountable for my free will choices. It doesn't do you any benefit to get too wrapped up on the enigma of free will. What does benefit you is living in a way that you feel you'll be held accountable, held responsible for everything you did and did not do in life. You know? That's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. Because we have so much to think about. You know. It's a difficult question. But that's the part of it. You know? The topic of free will is something that will not be answered. Can't be answered. We won't know till we die. And then when we all die, we're all on Judgment Day, we all know the answer. So, it's fun to think about. But never think you have the 100% sure answer. That's how I look at it. And if you okay, do you want to know exactly how your life is going to end up? Who would want to do that? You don't want to know what's at the end of the race before you started the race. So you gotta have a little bit of mystery. Gotta have a little bit of motivation. Just gotta keep on pressing through life. That's how I look at it. Islam is deterministic. Free will is shirk and a myth. I don't know. It's a bit over my head. Truth or Knowledge says the mechanism by which God aligns free will and determinism cannot be understood. However, we experience free will in our daily lives, and from physics angle, there is an uninterrupted causal chain. Exactly. That ripple effect, that first cause, leading to the second and third. You know, that's the miraculous part about life. And it's not so simple as the atheists try to put it. You are bound by your body. You're bound by your consciousness. You're bound by your genetic code. You have limits on you, imposed by yourself, by your government, by Allah. There's so many different codes upon you. So you cannot get too hung up on how do you get around free will? How do you figure it out? You're never going to. The best you can do is hold yourself accountable and make that race towards the goal line. Allah made truth simple, not some philosophical riddle. Yeah, but life is a riddle. That's how I look at it. We're here to do good, here to worship Allah alone, spread Tawheed, forbid evil, you know, make improvements on society, give dawah, all that good stuff. But life is a miracle. Life is a riddle. But that's the beauty of it, living every day. Living wonderful stuff. Saying we don't understand free will is a cope out, in my opinion, but we can agree to disagree on that. But you can't answer it, though, Lord Among Us. I was an atheist once. Don't get me wrong. That attitude about You can't understand free will. You can't, though. You can't understand what life is like on Saturn right now. You can't understand how a crow feels when its mate dies. You can't understand how a dairy cow feels when it gives birth. There's so many things in the world we can't understand. It's humble, actually, to say, I don't know. I don't know. And do I need to know? No. I don't need to know. I don't need to know the relationship of free will. What I need to know is who's crazy, who's evil, and I need to pay my bills on time. You know? It's not as simple. Any atheist who pretends that the mystery of free will is so simple to understand, it's like you're not really dealing with a wise person there. You're dealing with a smug, entitled George Carlin, Christopher Hitchens shithead. You know, that's what I'd say. That's what I'd say. Peace out, Jekyll Radio. Osama said, free will is simple and God gave it to us, but he knows how we will act. He give us the choice and judge us for this choice. There is no creation have this choice except human. Interesting point. Yeah, you know, it's a great way to think about life on Earth. You know, an atheist has a very cynical, nihilistic view sometimes at life. Very robotic. Very robotic. You know, I just don't see it that way. You know, we have to understand that there are things we just can't answer. You know. Alright, fam, we've done 2 hours. We had a great conversation, by the way. And I'm glad all of you joined. We had a great live stream. Covered many fun topics. Have a wonderful chat stream at the end. I hope you have a great night or day. And take care. I'll see you next time. And thanks for being part of the channel. And also, remember, hold on. Lord Humongous says, redefine what free will means. See, that's the mistake. You think you get to define it, but do you? If we can define it, then yes, we can understand it. Just saying you can't understand it is a cope, but not a cynical view on our own reasoning skills. You should study Heidegger. Martin Heidegger. Because language... What is language? Compare Spanish to Chinese. Okay? Language is a limited code of communication for humans that is subject to change. Hegel and Heidegger, brilliant German philosophers, pointed this out about what is language and how language limits concepts. You learn this when you translate things. Words in Cherokee are not the same as the words in Japanese. The concepts embedded within the language themselves. And language is constantly evolving. Right? Look at the word gay. It used to mean happy. Now it means the dude who likes to plow another dude in his bunghole. Mother. Okay, the word woman. The word woman. The word woman used to mean biology, nurturing, all the archetypes. Now it's a dude with a beard and a dress and high heels doing drag. Right? So, when we say we get to define, but who is we? Human race? Humans can't decide on what a woman is. Language is like in Spanish you have Latina and Latino, and liberals made a new word called Latinx. And it's like, what? So people change and invent language new every day. And then they change the definition. Biden, he changed the definition of what it means to be in a recession. You know, Joe Biden changed the word recession. So that way when Republicans criticized him for saying we're in a recession, Wikipedia and Google changed the word to fit Joe Biden's definition of a recession against what the economists traditionally thought a recession was. So Heidegger, Martin Heidegger, and Hegel point out that language is okay, like especially with Greek. So when you have Greek, and then someone who speaks Greek is trying to tell someone who speaks Spanish what this means, and you're translating from Greek to Spanish, emphasis has been lost, right? So when we say the word free will, we ask ourselves, what is free will to a Hindu within their framework? Okay, what is free will to a Norse pagan? What is free will to someone in the Blackfoot tribe of Mississippi? What is free will to a theosophist? Well, you see, everybody has their free will has a general understanding, but even a Mormon, compared to the systemology of, let's say, a Mennonite, has a different perception of how free will is exercised, controlled, and how is that relationship with the Creator, because each religion has a different relationship with the creation and the Creator. So that gets into a deeper level. So it's not so simple as some of my fun philosophy friends point out who are atheists. That, oh, well, we have a definite these two words, and therefore these two words, if you can't pick out these two words, that therefore means religion is ridiculous because you can't define free will and it's ridiculous and you're dumb. That's not an intelligent way or wise way. Like, if you, it's so sad. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Free will is something. What does it mean to be free? Free from what? Free from who? Free within what degree? Within what framework? What are we talking about here? Free economically? Are you free, but are you bound by your body and biology? Are you bound by your mental capacity? Can you escape and amplify your freedom? You see what I'm saying? As a philosophy major, I'm telling you, you can go all kinds of roads with that. And will. What is will? Whose will? Your own will? And then you get into Nietzsche territory. Can you master your own will? Because that's a satanic view, where it says, do as thou wilt. You can will yourself into, if you will something, you manifest it. But then, as a Muslim, we would say no, because Allah is capable of all things. So, you cannot just will something and it come true. But then it gets into the semantics of, well, how much can you will within your life based upon grit, determination, and some things will befall you and not be in your will, but you have the will to survive it, but not the will to control it. So how are we exercising will, and are there different wills upon us? So what does it mean to be free? Okay? And what does will mean? So free will. Then if you translate free will into Chinese, to German, to a Russian, to a Polish person, to a Bulgarian, you're going to get so many different answers based upon their religion. Okay? And so it's such a wonderful, long conversation. It's not a cope to be honest and say, I don't know how the relationship is with free will and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anyone who just is like LOL with the attitude of like a Twitter troll or a Reddit gamma, this is not intelligence. Okay? This to me is like someone who's trying to prove a point but isn't really being serious about it. You know? Because when you get around people who really study theology, people who really study philosophy, who are dedicated and not just like angry armchair Christopher Hitchens clones, you get into people who are very serious. Like, these are serious questions. Okay? Like, that's what I'm saying. Just because you can say in English, free will, that does not mean God is bound by the English language. Her point is that she doesn't know what free will is, therefore can't comment on whether it exists. I already answered you. Free will does exist. We can have a grasping type of understanding of what it is dependent upon our present condition, our subjective condition, and we can attempt to understand it. It does not mean I understand how my choices and abilities will plan out in the end and overall pattern of my life, and how I'll be held accountable for those choices at the end of the day. So I don't know why you don't get it. It's like I've taken so much time to explain it, to really give you a well-balanced, nuanced, difficult explanation, but it's like you Reddit people are like, it just shows that you're just used to being the only voice in the room, witty short sentences, and you think that's wisdom, man. The fact that you think you've debunked God because of free will is because you know the English language, okay? And you think because of these two words formed within this logical syllogism, that you somehow debunked life on earth, that you know what happens after we die. You know? It's just strange to me. But I mean, that's why philosophical conversations are not carried out with just anybody. Because if you want to be in a room, if you want to be in a room with some serious people who are having a cup of coffee and talking about like just deep introspective questions, you can't just say that. Most philosophers today don't believe in free will. You don't know most philosophers. Don't assume every philosopher is an atheist. That's the sad thing about you lot. That's the problem with liberal universities. They make you think every philosopher is an atheist. It's just not true, dude. And the best philosophers are not university professors, I'll tell you that. A university professor is somebody who's lost that drive for what philosophy is. They're paid to give you a boring curriculum and to swallow and memorize facts, names and dates and concepts, and that's it. The best philosophers, they'll look like they're homeless, and they're sitting on a park bench, and they go on and on and on and on. Like, I don't know what kind of philosophers you're hanging out with, but to think that every philosopher is an atheist, edgelord, twat, it's just not true, dude. It's just not true. Philosophy is a mindset. Most philosophers in the West, you haven't met most philosophers in the West. How many philosophers have you met in America that you hang out with on a daily freaking basis, dude? In your phone right now, how many phone numbers do you have of top-notch philosophers? How many philosophers do you actually communicate with and have deep conversations with? I'm not talking about, oh, you make a post on Facebook or on Twitter or on a YouTube channel, and now you feel like you know every philosopher. Do you go to philosophy conventions? Do you talk? I don't know why I'm getting so like I care so much. But it's just sad. Philosophy is like a mindset. It's a consciousness. It's a mode of being. You know? You can look up the statistics online. I've never taken a poll to ask my views as a philosopher. That's so skewed, you know? It's so skewed. I hate polls sometimes. Like, who's taking these polls? Oh, a nerdy philosopher is like, you're gonna take a poll about philosophy? You know, like when people say, well, there was a poll done for people who like chicken over pork. It's like, nobody asked me to take that poll, so what's this polling sample? University brats? Okay, if you're gonna go with university brats in a liberal area, alright. Whatever. But not the philosophers that I've met. They're not so smug and arrogant and, oh, LOL, like this attitude. No. Funny, some of the best philosophers were actually like these really strange Taoists and Buddhists. They were like really intricate in their brains. Like, no. When you talk to a real philosopher, you you feel better after the conversation. You know? When you have good conversations with philosophers, they leave you feeling like you learned something. You just have like an attitude, a trolly contrarian vibe. I give you long answers, you're not able to follow it, you're not able to see my points. You won't concede any of my points. It's like you just want to hear your own ideas put back to you. I don't get it, Lord Humongous. You just don't get it. Yeah, I agree it could be skewed, but that's the digression anyway, because Abdullah said I figured it all out Kaspastic way instead of addressing my points. You know, it's just, you have to have a very humble approach to answering serious questions. But again, that's why so many people are, I don't know, very smug atheists who are like very trolly, very angry towards religion, call everything a cope. It's like, that's why you're not invited to the best circles. You know? That's why, who wants someone like that at the dinner table? Like a very, like, spiteful, contrarian, someone who's not willing to hear it out or admit they don't know. Like, it's just so strange, man. Really so strange. Because the best philosophical conversations, you have so much to learn. And everyone will define it in a very unique way. Free will gives you a choice to make decisions in life. You know you have a choice, but you don't know how that choice factors in to what you can control within your destiny. And just because you have those abilities to have free choice doesn't mean you're not going to be held accountable for it. And you don't know what you'll be forgiven for. It's like weird how you atheists cannot just accept that you don't know who God is. You don't know where you go when you die. You will not know an answer to the paradox that is religion. You won't know. And they're like, oh, how dare you say you don't know? What kind of moron says they know? You haven't died yet. You haven't lived life. To think you could know everything within like 70 years on Earth? Are you insane? What kind of person thinks like that? What kind of person thinks like, oh, I'll know everything by the age of 50? There's so much knowledge in the world. So many things we don't know. I mean, come on, man. So it's nothing wrong with saying, no, I don't understand the mystery, depending on free will and how that would relate to an Islamic understanding of the cosmos. A Buddhist will have a different, you know, the sevenfold path. Somebody who believes in the ancient astronaut theory is going to have a whole different view on free will as well. Someone who's a Taoist is going to have a different view on free will as well. So they have a frame that they operate through. They will judge free will based on that frame. And then on language, we have to say, well, what kinds of, how much degree do we have control over our own will? What can we will? But we know as Muslims that Allah's will overrides ours. But we still have a will to keep trying, to keep going ahead, to not give up. And we don't know how we affect that path and what we'll be forgiven for. And we just don't. And that's the beautiful thing. It's not a cope. It's not like, oh, you're not as smart as me, I'm like Einstein, blah 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 blah. Like Einstein he was a loser. He literally had intimacy with his cousin, then had intimacy with his cousin's daughter. Einstein was a weirdo, okay? He's not just some genius. And Stephen Hawking, some weird dude in a wheelchair, he's like, I debunk God. It's like, okay, you're in a wheelchair, and you can barely talk without your robot voice, and you went to Epstein's Island. Who are you, dude? The arrogance and the ego on some atheists because they know a little bit of math, know a couple of theories. It's so strange how the humility, the humbleness of some atheists goes out the window. You know? If you want to worship scientists and you want to say laugh out loud at everything, that's why you're not really invited to be in the right bonfires, to sit at the right tables, to be in the right rooms. Because nobody really wants that kind of attitude around. You know? You're going to find yourself in some difficult places with an attitude like that, Lord among us. You know, so I suggest that you shape up in your attitude. You come in hot, you have an edgelord attitude, and ad hominem attacks. Facts are facts. If you want to go and worship a scientist who is just a human, who has faults, and then mock someone like me or others when we admit that we don't know something, you're an ignoramus. You can't pretend scientists know everything, and then when someone says they don't know something, you make fun of the person who admits they don't know something. And the arrogance to think that you somehow debunk God, or free will doesn't exist, or, you know, destiny is this. Like, just what is destiny? These are serious questions. But again, the reason why you think every philosopher doesn't believe in God or is an atheist is because wise people, like, if with your attitude, if I knew you in person, I wouldn't invite you to any of my get-togethers because you got an attitude. You got attitude, smugness, you're coming in with a closed mind, coming in with your own agenda. You're not adding to the conversation, you're distracting from it. That's not how fun philosophy circles work. You want to have the Socratic method. You want to have this sort of exchange of consciousness and get to see someone's being and see their perspective and work within that framework. But you're just LOL, LOL, oh, this fallacy, oh, it's like, okay, find somebody else, dude. Find somebody else. And you can take my advice, you can ignore what I'm saying, you know, but I don't think there would be a lot of philosophy people who would give you the time of day, right? Like any philosophy channel on YouTube, would somebody go through this much time to explain their position, to give you a serious conversation without making you pay a super chat, without making you pay, I don't know, for their Discord server or something? I don't know. But here I am, being more humble than you, and engaging with you, and giving you a lot of time. I was supposed to leave like 20 minutes ago. You know, and giving you extra time, and you don't appreciate it. You're just like, oh, well, everything's about me. I can't see your perspective. LOL, LOL. That's why, you know, you gotta accept that, man. You know, if I went into my philosophy class, which I miss so much, but I miss them. We had such a good rapport. A teacher's not gonna let you talk like that. You have to have the principle of charity, we call it, where you're trying to understand the other person's perspective. Like I'm mean to feminists and liberals, but what, like, online, sometimes, like right now, like I don't like liberals, right? But if I'm talking to a liberal in person, totally respectful. I still prove my points, but I let them argue their points, and then I try to argue my point through my lens, but by also seeing it through their lens, you know? But what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to have will? And what is our will compared to the Creator's? And how does that measure out on Judgment Day? This is a mystery. But see, atheists have lost their sense of wonder and sublimeness in the world. Everything is material, everything is atomized, everything is just dirt when we go. So I understand that deadness. When I was an atheist, I was very, very close minded. I was angry at God when I was an atheist. You know? I read Christopher Hitchens' books and Bertrand Russell, all them. And later, I just read more and more, and I just became more calm and stuff like that. But there's so much to learn out there, so many books to read, so much to think about. You can't just dismiss everything and think everything is a cope. Maybe with other people you met, Lord Humongous, maybe with other people you met, they had a coping mechanism, but I'm not coping. Because coping means you've been hurt. It means you're afraid. I'm not afraid, you know? I'm not afraid to not know something. I'm not afraid of... I'm afraid to die, but I'm not afraid to not know something. So when you say, oh, that's a cope, that's a cope. You don't understand free will, that's a cope. It's a cop-out. Actually, no. Maybe other people see it that way, but I say, you know what? How can I pretend I know everything? I don't know everything. I can do my best, but at the end of the day, I'll know I'll never find an answer. And if I think I found an answer, I'll probably be wrong when I die. So what are you gonna do? That's the truth. You know? You know? Coping, cop-out, stuff like that. What are you gonna do? A cap, if you want to call it a cap, like, oh, it's capping. It's like, oh, like, oh, however you want to phrase it. You know? But Abdullah says, 10 years later, today's answer will maybe be satisfying or not. That's a really good point. With the more life experience you get, the more you think. The way I thought when I was 14 is different than the way I think now, right? So Q says, I have a question to the philosophers in the chat. Are you an organic robot? Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Organic robot. Oh, that's a tricky one. That's a smart question. Organic versus the material versus... I like that one. Artificial intelligence versus organic robot. Organic as being from human ingredients, rising up naturally without the aid of humans. That's a very smart question. Yes. But okay, fam. I definitely gotta go now. I was supposed to go 20 minutes ago. So you take care. Hope you all have a great night or day. And thanks for tuning in. It means a lot. Great stream. And hope to see you on the channel. My subscribe star is www.subscribestar.com/Milahan archive. I post memes and longer philosophical thoughts on there. Baking stuff, homesteading stuff, all kinds of fun things. So if you want to join the community, join. There's no trolls there or anything. It's pretty mellow. So if you want to join, helps out the channel, and it's pretty fun. I like it. I post consistently, and Patreon bans people, so I don't use Patreon. And PayPal, they're corrupt. If you haven't heard that new policy they were inventing, and then they changed their minds of misinformation or whatever, they're gonna fine people $2,500 for what they post. You know, PayPal and Patreon are corrupt. Subscribestar is better in my view. And so if you want to join that community, I always link to it. I'll link to it in the description. Put it in the comment section later. But consider joining. It's pretty cool. I can post things on there that I can't post on Instagram or YouTube. You know, so it's always fun to see cool things. And I can also type longer answers there. So, if you ever want me to answer something and I can't, you know, make a long post or video about it, I usually will type something on my subscribe star. So consider heading over there. I'm trying to build it up, you know. So take care, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Have a good night, and thanks for tuning in.